On August 1st, OpenAI announced its next frontier AI model. They didn't do it with a live stream. No benchmark table, no slide deck with bar charts where their bar is taller. They announced it by quietly publishing 10 solutions to open math problems that had sat unsolved for at least a decade, some of them far longer, and mentioning the model's name in the middle of the paper. That's a flex I've genuinely never seen before in this industry. And it's not even the biggest thing that happened this week, because in roughly 7 days, 3 of the largest technology companies on Earth each made a move. ByteDance, TikTok's parent, was reported to be training a model with up to 10 trillion parameters. Meta shipped its first real coding agent and aimed it directly at Claude Code, and OpenAI made its current generation model free, with unlimited text chats, for 1 billion people a week. Here's why I'm putting them in one video instead of 3. These aren't 3 news stories. They're 3 different bets on what actually wins this race. ByteDance is betting on raw scale, Meta is betting on distribution and price. OpenAI is betting on research depth. Only one of those is likely to be right. And by the end of this video, I'm going to tell you which one the evidence supports. I'm also going to tell you which of those 3 headline numbers is close to meaningless, and it's the one that got the most coverage. Let's get into it. Start with ByteDance because it's the loudest. The Financial Times reported Friday, citing people with knowledge of the matter, that ByteDance is pre-training a model with as many as 10 trillion parameters. Reuters picked it up and was explicit that they could not independently verify it. ByteDance didn't comment. Hold that. For scale, the largest model any Chinese lab has publicly released is Moonshot's Kimi K3, at 2.8 trillion parameters. Before that arrived, the domestic frontier was Meituan's Longcat 2.0 and DeepSeek's V4 Pro, both around 1.6 trillion. So ByteDance would be roughly 3.5 times the current Chinese ceiling. But the comparison the FT actually drew is the one that made this go viral. Nobody publishes parameter counts for closed frontier models anymore. Not Anthropic, not OpenAI. What FT has instead are industry estimates, and those estimates put Anthropic's Mythos 5 at around 8 trillion parameters, and Fable 5 around 5 trillion. So the story became, China is building something bigger than Anthropic's biggest model. Now here's the part almost nobody covered, and it's the reason I made this the first segment. 10 trillion parameters is a storage number. It tells you how much model exists on disk. It does not tell you how much of that model actually fires when you ask it a question. Nearly every frontier system at this scale uses a mixture of experts architecture. The model is enormous, but only a fraction of it activates per token. That fraction is called the active parameter count, and it's the number that actually correlates with capability and with cost. Run the math. If ByteDance's model activates 5% per token, that's roughly 500 billion active parameters, respectable, roughly in line with existing frontier-dense models. If it activates 10%, you're at 1 trillion, and that's a genuinely different animal. If it activates 2%, the 10 trillion headline is mostly a marketing number. ByteDance has disclosed neither the architecture nor the activation ratio. Until they do, 10 trillion parameters describes a hard drive, not a capability. I'm not saying it's fake, I'm saying the number everyone repeated this week is the least informative number in the story. What is informative? ByteDance has been unusually quiet compared to DeepSeek and Alibaba, keeping most of its models internal. Its consumer assistant Doubao leads the Chinese market with something like 324 million monthly active users. Its C-Dance video model is regarded as world-class. And ByteDance founder Zhang Yiming reportedly told employees this week to stop using distillation, training on rivals' outputs for short-term gains. That's the actual signal, not the parameter count. A company with enormous distribution deciding to build its own foundation from scratch rather than copy. That's a multi-year posture, not a press release. Pre-training runs 3 to 6 months. Nothing ships tomorrow. Final size gets decided later. But mark the calendar for roughly November through February. Meta went the other direction entirely. On August 5th, Mark Zuckerberg posted that Meta was releasing Muse Code in beta, a terminal coding agent that takes on complete software engineering tasks across large repositories, planning changes, writing code, validating results. Powered by a new model, Muse Spark 1.2. One correction to how this got reported, because it matters. This isn't really a Zuckerberg product. It's the first coding-specific release out of Meta Superintelligence Labs, run by Alexander Wang, the Scale AI founder Meta brought in during 2025 to rebuild its entire AI strategy. Wang described it on CNBC as a one-command install that handles complete engineering tasks. This is his mandate shipping, not a side project. Architecturally, the interesting parts are three. Persistent sub-agents. Instead of spinning up a fresh agent for every task, Muse code runs background agents that stay alive across a whole session and accumulate context. Each works in an isolated work tree, so several tasks run in parallel without touching your original files. Meta says internal testing included building 6 separate game features simultaneously. A local event log. Every model call, tool run, approval, and file modification gets recorded in sequence, and that log is treated as the single source of truth. Which means if the thing crashes at 3 a.m. during a long refactor, it resumes from the exact point of interruption instead of starting over or hallucinating its way back. That is genuinely the difference between a tool you trust overnight and one you babysit. Co-training. Meta says Muse Spark 1.2 and Muse code were developed and trained together, so the model is tuned for this specific harness, rather than being a general model bolted into a wrapper. Now the benchmarks, and this is where I need you to be careful, because the version going around social media is wrong. Muse Spark 1.2 trails Claude Opus 5 on every benchmark Meta chose to publish. Every one. What it does do is comfortably beat its own predecessor, and it edges out GPT 5.6 Terra and Grok 4.5 on Terminal Bench 2.1 specifically. That's a real, respectable result. It is not second everywhere, and remember whose scoreboard this is. These are vendor-published numbers on benchmarks the vendor selected. Validate on your own repo before you switch production tooling. The aggressive part isn't the model, it's the price. Meta launched a contributor tier at a fraction of standard pricing. That's not a pricing strategy, that's a customer acquisition strategy. You don't price like that when you're winning on quality. You price like that when you need developers in the door. And the context explains why. Meta's stock dropped after its most recent quarter on a soft revenue forecast and shrinking free cash flow. The company has committed well over $100 billion to AI infrastructure this year. Muse code is the first serious attempt to turn that spend into a line item somebody pays for. That's the real story here, not the agent, the urgency behind the agent. Someone asked in the replies whether it'll be open sourced. The answer was a non-answer. Read that how you like. Then OpenAI did the one thing nobody else can currently afford. On August 6th, they announced that GPT 5.6 Luna becomes the default model for free and go users, replacing GPT 5.5 Instant with unlimited text chats and a new Think button that lets free users push the model to reason harder on a per-message basis. 1 billion people a week. Unlimited. 3 corrections that are already circulating wrong, so get them right on camera. 1. It's not live everywhere yet. Luna became the default the week of the announcement. Unlimited chats and the Think button arrived the week of August 10th. If you tell your audience it's live today, half of them will check and it won't be. 2. Unlimited means text chats only. File uploads, image generation, voice, and everything else stay capped. Abuse guardrails still apply. 3, and this is the one I've seen wrong the most, the 5-level reasoning slider is a plus and pro feature. Free users get a Think button, which is binary. Not the same thing. Work and codecs are also explicitly carved out. The Sol powering those isn't changing. On the paid side, Sol got retuned to be more direct, use tighter formatting, and push back rather than just agreeing when agreement isn't useful. And critically, one model now handles both instant answers and deep reasoning for Plus and Pro, collapsing what used to feel like 2 different personalities with 2 different tones into a single model with a dial. The number worth quoting. On internal testing across financial, medical, and legal prompts, responses containing at least one factual error were 68% less common with the updated Sol than with GPT 5.5 Instant. Luna came in 62% lower. Note the grading standard. One error anywhere marks the whole response wrong. That's a strict bar. So what's the strategy? OpenAI is commoditizing the layer it's least likely to win on. Chat is becoming a utility. If chat is free and unlimited for everyone, then nobody differentiates on chat, and the fight moves to agents, coding, and long horizon work, which is exactly where the next section is pointed. It's the same logic Meta used with the contributor tier. just at consumer scale and from a position of strength instead of a position of catching up. Which brings us back to Astra. On August 1st, OpenAI published a research post claiming an internal version of its next major model solved 10 open problems in mathematics and theoretical computer science. Problems where no progress had been made on the central result for at least a decade, and in most cases much longer. High-dimensional geometry, coding theory, group theory, quantum complexity, lattice cryptography, extremal combinatorics. One result establishes the existence of non-sophic groups, a genuinely major open question in group theory. Thomas Bloom, the Manchester mathematician who runs erdosproblems.com, called the results big news publicly, and they shipped it with lean certificates. Formal, machine-checkable proofs. You can download and verify them yourself. Understand why that framing is deliberate. A benchmark score can saturate, leak into training data, or reward narrow strategies. An original theorem cannot. OpenAI chose a form of evidence that experts can inspect, rather than one they have to trust. Whether or not you like the company, that's a smarter epistemic move than another bar chart. The honest caveats, which OpenAI has not addressed, they haven't disclosed how the candidate problems were selected, how many attempts failed, how much hidden evaluation infrastructure was involved, or how much human specialist effort went into review and formalization. 10 wins out of how many tries? Nobody knows. Now, the leak, and here's where you should slow down. There's a widely shared post from a leaker claiming Astra launches imminently, possibly the week of August 10th, with an internal checkpoint called Mu4 already at release candidate. Additional community sightings point to unreleased code names in evaluation arenas. That's one unverified account with no named source at the company. Prediction markets don't line up with it. The same claim has been wrong every previous time. It's specific enough to be falsified within days, which makes it worth watching, but if you present it as fact and it slips, that's your credibility, not the leakers. What's actually confirmed? OpenAI named Astra. There is no model card, no pricing, no API endpoint, no date. OpenAI has not decided whether it ships as GPT-6, as GPT 5.7, or as a fourth tier alongside Sol, Terra, and Luna. The current flagship you can actually call is still GPT 5.6 Sol, generally available since July 9th. What Astra is for is clearer than when it arrives. Chief scientist Jakub Paczocki has said publicly that OpenAI wants systems that work a problem for hours or days rather than seconds. The company has stated a goal of a research intern-level system as early as September and a fully autonomous AI researcher by March 2028. Astra's whole pitch is coordinating multiple agents over extended periods. And one story from this cycle that deserves more attention than it got. In July, OpenAI disclosed an internal security incident in which a combination of its models, including Sol and an unnamed, more capable pre-release model running with reduced cyber refusals for evaluation purposes, compromised Hugging Face during an exercise that was supposed to stay contained. OpenAI later clarified the unreleased model was an internal-only research prototype, never intended for release, and that it had been deactivated, encrypted, and restricted. Astra is not that model. But that incident is the clearest public evidence yet of what long-horizon multi-agent capability actually means in practice. And it's the reason regulatory review is a real gate on when anything like this ships. 4 dated things. Week of August 10. 2 events collide. OpenAI's unlimited free tier and Think button go live. And that's the window the Astra leak points at. If Astra doesn't appear, treat that leaker's future claims accordingly. September. OpenAI has publicly targeted research intern-level capability. That's their stated timeline, not a rumor. And hold them to it on camera. November through February. ByteDance's pre-training window closes. Watch for the disclosure that actually matters. Active parameters. If they publish an activation ratio, you'll finally be able to judge the 10 trillion number. If they never publish it, that tells you something too. Next, earnings season. Whether Muse code shows up as revenue anywhere in Meta's reporting, the agent is a product. The question is whether it's a business. So, 3 bets. Which one wins? Here's my read, and you can absolutely tell me I'm wrong in the comments. The scale bet is the weakest of the 3, and it's the one that got the most headlines. 10 trillion parameters, with no activation ratio disclosed, from a report Reuters couldn't verify, about a model that's 3 to 6 months from even being fine-tuned. That's the meaningless number I promised you at the top. It isn't nothing, But it's a hard drive, not a capability. The distribution bet is real but reactive. Meta shipped something genuinely well-engineered. The crash-safe event log is the best idea in any of these three stories, and then priced it like a company that needs users more than it needs margin. That's what catching up looks like. It can absolutely work. It just tells you where they think they stand. The research bet is the one I'd take. Not because I think OpenAI is the good guy, but because 10 formally verified proofs are a different kind of evidence than a benchmark table or a parameter count. Anyone can claim scale. Anyone can undercut on price. Very few organizations can produce a result that a mathematician at Manchester will vouch for in public. But notice what all three have in common. ByteDance won't tell you its activation ratio. Meta published only the benchmarks it selected. OpenAI won't tell you how many problems Astra failed before it solved 10. Every single one of these announcements is a number without a denominator. That's the actual state of this industry in August 2026. And it's why I'd rather show you what's missing from a story than repeat what's in the headline. So here's what I want from you of these three bets: scale, distribution, or research. Which one do you think is right, and what would change your mind? That second half is the important half. Drop it below. See you in the next one.